I think we're constantly gut checking ourselves, but I think, as everyone else has said, you also have to really follow your passion. I think it has to come out of what you care about the most. I don't know how you would tell a story without that sort of being your guiding light.
Welcome to the Hollywood Reporter's Animation Roundtable. I'm Scott Roxborough, and let's meet our guests. First, we have Bienvenu, the director of Arco, which is a release with Neon. Jared Bush, one of the directors of Zootopia 2, Disney release. Liane-Cho, one of the directors of Little Amélie, or The Character of Rain, which is going out on G Kids. Maggie Kang, the director of KPop Demon Hunters, a Netflix release. Domee Shi, one of the directors of Elio, a Pixar film, and Alexander Wu, one of the directors of In Your Dreams, a Netflix release. Thank you all for being here. Thank you so much for taking part.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Really happy to be here.
Maybe we can start with more of a general question. What makes a great animated filmmaker? What is it that makes a great animated filmmaker in your mind?
Patience. You
have to be a super collaborator.
You
have to have a lot of stamina. It takes a while to make these.
Yeah, you have to be like slightly masochistic because it's a painful and long process, and you have to love it. Yeah. You have to love the pain and the payoff of like watching one beautiful second of animation that you've toiled for months over.
I think you have to also love evolving a story that you're, at least for me, you're not coming in with a story that stays for the however long it takes to make, but it's this constant evolution that's aided by all that collaborative help that you're getting.
Yeah. And also for me is like knowing every field of the work, every métier. In France we say métier, every craft because there's a lot of craftsmen and different I don't know how to say it. There's storyboard, there's animation, and to me it's good to know every part of the job so you can explain and also work on it, help people work on it, and find solutions for them sometimes.
You also have to like spin a lot of plates at the same time. Sometimes it's like hundreds. Sometimes it starts off at like 5, and then it starts to become like 10 and 30 and then 100, because every single sequence or scene is in a different part of production.
Yeah, I think you also have to love animation. I mean, seems like it seems like that's an obvious thing, but I don't know that's the case for everybody. I think you actually have to love the medium in order to be a successful filmmaker in it.
I think you have to be a real nerd about animation. You have to know the history of it. You have to know the technique of it, the craft of it, to really take advantage of everything the medium has to offer, because it's such an incredible medium. You can do so many things in it. It's so versatile. So I think being a real, having really deep nerd love for animation really helps when you're directing.
Well, this is a very deep nerd love place, so you're in a very safe space here. Maggie, maybe I can start with you. KPop Demon Hunters has been an amazing phenomenon, a cultural phenomenon across music, across film, across animation, of course. But you have spent a long, long time with this project. You were developing it long before Netflix came on board. I wonder, what kept you going over all those years, developing it to this original story, untested idea, and what kept you going all that way in order to get to this point?
Passion, I think, is you really need that. I knew I wanted to see this movie, and that's the thing that really drove me the entire time. And every step of the way, you're rewarded with just little small milestones. And like Domee was saying, a second of animation comes in and you're like, yay, this is like 1 second of, I don't know how many seconds. And, but yes, passion and just wanting to see this thing live. You're creating something out of nothing, which is, I think, the hardest thing to do as a human being, to like create something out of nothing. And when you see it slowly come together, and then you start to build a team that is helping you see this vision through, it just keeps fueling you no matter how hard it gets.
What's been like to see this sort of cultural phenomenon that your film has become? I mean, what's been the most interesting, strangest, or a joyful piece of fan created art that you've seen come out of what you produced?
Art. I love the little fan theories that. One of my favorite ones was like Rumi's holding her sword, and it's just Genu like coming out of it. So much just Genu like that. But I love seeing all the fan theories, and one of my favorite things is just reading through the comments and fans just really understanding the story and the characters and their backstories and speaking on it like they were in the writing room with us and figuring out these characters and the depth of these characters and the nuances, because a lot of things are kind of left unsaid in our movie, and purposely, because we just wanted to imply a lot of backstory, a lot of history, and the fact that the fans pick up on it and are sharing it with each other, I think has been one of the most rewarding things.
Ugo, can maybe go to you with Arco. This is your first feature animation film. What was it about this story or this central character that compelled you to make this? What was sort of your personal connection to this story that made you want to take the leap and do feature animation with this film?
I do science fiction since 10 years almost, and one day it appeared to me like super clearly, okay, we're living in a bad science fiction movie. And I thought, okay, it's mainly, I think, because of us, because we're always telling a bad future story, And if we just imagine the worst, it's just going to happen. And because human beings have the ability of bring to the world their ideas. And I think if we want better things to have happen, we have to imagine them first. And that's what gave me the will to do this movie and to put all my forces in it and to try to not criticize, not just to create the possibility of a better future. Yeah, that's what gave me the will to do this movie.
And when did you get Natalie Portman on board as a producer?
She arrived in 2023, 24, at the end of 23, and we were like we were finishing the animatic of the movie. But because we produced ourselves in Remembers this animatic, because it was really difficult to finance the movie on a script because nobody understood. So we financed it. We did this animatic, and she saw this animatic and she told us, what do you need from us? And then we decided to co-produce, and it went super fast. We financed the movie in like a few months and launched the production, and it took us 1 year to finish the movie after that.
Jared, I imagine it wasn't too difficult to get financing for Zootopia 2. But I want to know, what is it like to take on the sequel to one of the most successful and beloved Oscar-winning animated films?
Well, as you said, no pressure at all. It was very easy jumping in there. I was actually hired to come to Disney in the first place 15 years ago for the first Zootopia. That was my first job at Disney Animation. So the world of Zootopia brought me here. So it has such a special place in my heart. And I'd say from the beginning, we wanted to feel like this was an expansive world, and we had a sense that there were a lot of stories to tell. I will say that it is very different jumping into a story where audiences know the characters or they have a very specific connection to the characters. And to your point, we do have to walk this line between making sure that an audience is able to follow this character journey and see characters that they know, but also continuing to push boundaries. It's so important. So I think more than anything, what we really tried to focus on was the character story, and a continuation story. For me, what I care about the most is is how these characters progress through it. And for Nick and Judy in this story, we knew we wanted to interrogate their partnership more. In the first film, I think that they'd been partners for about 48 hours to crack that case. Now what is sort of the next question? So I think this is where having so many people have eyeballs on it and so many people here care, because in our building here, we have fans of the movie that also wanted to create something special. And so I think we're constantly gut checking ourselves. But I think, as everyone else has said, you also have to really follow your passion. I think it has to come out of what you care about the most. I don't know how you would tell a story without that sort of being your guiding light.
I mean, the world has changed quite a bit since the first Zootopia film as well. I'm wondering, did that influence how you approach this film? I'm thinking particularly the sort of one of the core themes of the first Zootopia movie is the theme of diversity and almost multiculturalism, if you want to say that way. That those terms have been sort of politicized since then. Does that make it more challenging to go into this film?
Well, it's interesting. I'd say what we really try to do more than anything on the first film as well was use this movie to talk about human nature and the ways that we as humans interact with one another. And I'd say when the first film came out, obviously there was a lot of conversation about the themes of that and bias and stereotype. That was a major talking point. I think it felt very topical at the moment that the movie came out, but this is part of human nature. So I think something that we really tried to think about then and also now is what is sort of an evergreen situation that we may want to hold a mirror up to. And so whether that was talking about bias and stereotype for the first film, obviously those stories would resonate 10 years before that and 20 years before that and 50 years before that, as they will into the future. So I think one of the things we really tried to do in this story was to say, okay, there's sort of this DNA that we have in this world of animals, but how are we going to use our themes and evolve them so it feels like a continued conversation that's kind of always been, and because we as humans sort of we make the same mistakes over and over again. How do we talk about those?
And Liane-Cho, maybe I can bring you in with Little Amélie. It's a very interesting story about a young Belgian girl growing up in Japan. Very much cross-cultural story. Is that what drew you in, or what was sort of the emotional core of the story for you?
Actually, as you say, it's from a book. It's an adaptation from a book, and from the book author called Amélie no Tombe. She's actually quite famous in France. And I discovered the book when I was 19, so more than 20 years ago, actually. And I was not really a bookworm at that time. I was more into pop culture, Japanese animation, video games, and but I was so moved when I read that book, moved by this unique case of this 2.5-year-old Belgian girl born in Japan who believes she's God, actually, and in this of course fascinating country which is Japan. I mean, I was in love with Japanese culture at that time, because I watched a lot of Japanese anime. And also this very poignant relationship with Nisho-san, and really what really moves me is the evolution of this girl, where she believes she's God until she has this disillusion to understand what life is that you cannot control everything, and how she bounces up to still love life.
And Domee, with Elio, it wasn't your original film, right? Because it was developed before, and then you came on as a co-director. Was that a particular challenge to sort of make the project your own? And what did you sort of latch onto in the story that sort of became the core of the film for you?
The original idea came from Adrian Molina. And it was directly kind of inspired by his own life growing up on a military base, being the weird kid on the base. But then when he had to step away to start Coco 2, Madeline Sharafian and I were brought on to kind of help finish the movie. But then with strikes, we kind of ended up moving the release date, and that gave us a little bit more time. And at Pixar, we just take every free second that we can to try to plus and improve and see what more we can do with the film, just to make it the best version it can be. And so Maddie and I kind of looked and examined at the character Elio, and really try to infuse him with a drive that the both of us could really kind of connect with and relate to on a personal level. And that was this like desire to be abducted by aliens and this obsession with being abducted by aliens and wanting to find a place where you belong. And that essentially was the emotion, that personal kind of aspect that Maddie and I brought to the project.
I have to say, and apologies to Maggie, to Alex, and to everyone else who had great music, incredible music in your film. But I have to say, your opening needle drop, Talking Heads, Once in a Lifetime, is my favorite needle drop of cinema this year. Was that always was that song always in your mind, or did you have any other options that you were thinking of?
Yeah, we were playing around with a bunch of songs. At some point we cut in Intergalactic by the Beastie Boys, but that felt maybe a little too on the nose. I always felt like that song really spoke to this like loneliness and ennui of kind of just living your life one day after another. And it just felt like, and I love how pretty and ethereal and kind of alien the opening is with the synths. And it just felt like David Byrne is kind of, I feel like he was probably an alien boy at some point in his life too. So a lot of things kind of drew us to that song. And when we cut it in and watched it for the first time, we were like, yes, this is it.
Oh, yeah, it's amazing. And Alex, can I bring you in? This project, In Your Dreams, it's also your first sort of feature debut as a director. You worked with Pixar for many years before you set up your own company to make this original. I mean, I think I've heard you tell the story before of how you actually cracked this story, because you were working on it for a long time. The idea of doing an animation film set in the world of dreams, is something that's been around for a long, long time. But it's incredibly difficult to sort of manage to pull it off. What was sort of the key moment for you where you actually did crack it, where you realized, okay, this is how I can make this movie?
Yeah. So when we started the company in 2016, we spent that first year just sort of like playing and dreaming up ideas for TV shows and movies that we wanted to see that we felt like nobody else was making. And one of those ideas was an animated movie in the dream world. And we just couldn't believe that nobody had done it yet. We were like, this is such a gold mine. I mean, it's a universal human experience. Everybody in the world dreams. Everybody across cultures, across time dreams. We still don't know why we dream. So it's such like a ripe space for mythology and for fiction and for stories. And then we quickly discovered, once we started developing that idea, I was like, oh, this is the reason why, because it's so hard to give a dream movie stakes. Right? One of the things that's so compelling about a dream movie is that you can do anything, right? But when you can do anything and anything can happen, nothing really matters. So how do you give a dream movie stakes? And so, yeah, we were sort of banging our heads against the wall for a long time. And then the key that unlocked this was this idea that, if Stevie and Elliot found the Sandman in the dream world, he could make their dreams come true. And then suddenly there was a connection between the dream world and the real world, and things that the kids did in the dream world would affect their real world. And so that was the way that we sort of unlocked it. But just having a connection between those two things is still an answer that sort of this question of what's the core story. And so for that, I sort of drew on my own personal experience in my own family. And when I was like 6 or 7 years old, I woke up one morning and my mom was like, she had her bags packed and she was at the front door to our house, and she like left for a little while, and it was like really scary for me and my brother. And I remember watching her pull out of the driveway and leave. And at that moment, all I wanted was to find a way to keep my family together and keep it whole. And I told that story to my team, and they were like, that's really juicy. That's such a rootable goal for a character, especially a kid. And so it was that combination of this sort of really intimate personal story about a kid just trying to keep her family whole with this big, fantastical, adventurous, spectacular world of dreams, that we felt like, oh, that's a great combination for an animated movie.
It strikes me that everyone, all the films here, with the exception of Zootopia 2, are original stories, never before made. Is this a sign that, despite what everyone says about IP, that the industry is becoming more open to original animated stories?
I hope so, but I think it's whenever I pitch something original, I still get a lot of, we're not doing originals right now.
Yeah, I mean, Jared, Domee, what is the attitude within the bigger studios? Is there an openness to more original stories, or is there still a lot of fear around that because of the risk involved?
I don't know. You want to jump in there, Domee?
Yeah, I mean, from my experience, making movies, making animated films is hard and a financial risk, regardless of if they're originals or sequels. Just because something is a sequel doesn't mean it's guaranteed to be successful. I feel like, at least at Pixar, we're always trying to like figure out how to continue telling unique and original stories that everyone kind of could relate to and love. But it's been, to be honest, it's been tough. Like you all know, like Elio was released this summer and got massacred at the box office, to put it bluntly. But the people who have seen it love it. And it's just a big challenge and a big conversation right now in the industry of like how do you push original theatrical kind of films, through all of the noise, through all of the media and content that's being released. I'm so hopeful for original movies. I feel like Maggie, like what you've done with K-pop is incredible and such a beacon of hope and light for original films. But it took you so long to make it too. And I hope like with the success of films like K-pop, that like big studios will be wanting to take more creative risks. How do you feel about it, Maggie?
I mean, I don't know about everybody else's experience, but when you first start pitching a movie, you immediately talk to marketing, and they're always trying to. Well, I don't know. That's kind of my experience.
Well, that's fascinating. I'm like learning so much from this.
So marketing gets involved and has a very big say on what kind of films get made at a certain studio, and I mean, I truly believe that the K-pop of it all, of our film, got it made and got it greenlit, and I was just like, I'm gonna take this K-pop idea and make it the most Korean personal movie that I can make as a Korean creator, just to see Korean representation on screen, and just put just like linking the mythology of our hunter women to Korean shamanism, and just to be able to show the history of Korea, of Korean music, Korean dance. It's a very short sequence at the very beginning of the movie, but just as a Korean person and seeing and hearing from other Koreans as well, it's just we've never had that representation, like, of our culture, of like these women just in different garb, like traditional Korean garb. We just never seen that before. And my parents, the first time they saw it, they were like crying. And so I don't know. I'm an animation kid that grew up in the big studio machine. I spent most of my career at DreamWorks, and we're always thinking about what can we sell, like what is marketable, like what is, because like we said, animation can be at the big studio level, they're very expensive to make. So you want less risk, which is, we always talk about the 4-quadrant thing. How many, like what are the ideas that are going to get the most eyes on this product, on this film? And so I think that's just kind of how I'm thinking all the time. I'm always thinking about ways to like kind of link the marketability of an idea with something very personal, and then making and finding a story within that, with a character's journey that is very universal and relatable to anybody. I think for me, that's kind of my recipe, and that's how I like to think.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, really, the reason I think studios want to do sequels is because it's really a marketing uh, uh, angle, right? Because you've got a built-in audience, and so it makes selling the movie a lot easier. And I think Maggie's right. Like if you're able to find an angle in an original that makes it really easy to market the movie, it makes the studio's job a lot easier. I mean, even for my film, like it's a movie about dreams, and that's the big marketing piece because everybody dreams, everybody's had that experience. If I just made a movie about a kid trying to keep their family together, I don't think any studio would have wanted to make that. But because I combined it with this big sort of fantastical world and this universal experience of dreaming, I think Netflix was really excited about it.
I'd also say that I think that doing sequels only isn't a long-term business plan. I think it's so critical to keep original stories coming through. I know that we're doing a lot of that here. Obviously, we've had sequels for the last 2 years, including Zootopia. But moving to the future for us, I think it is that kind of what's the new thing that's going to surprise people. And I'd say everyone's films here, which I really what really came to the forefront is you can really get a sense of personality and what filmmakers care about. And I think that translates to the audience. I think audiences want to be surprised by something, to see something that feels unique and has a distinct perspective. So I think that's a real critical thing that we do as we're moving forward, because it's really hard to know what an audience is going to deeply love. But I will say that sometimes they don't know what that is until a movie comes out and they really fall in love with it. And I think so much of that has to do with the distinct flavor of these movies, and originals are such an important part of how we do that.
And it's so funny because every single idea was once an original IP.
Exactly.
So at some point, they were very up for all these IPs to be made, and now there's this fear, which hopefully
Yeah,
we can.
and I answered also as an author, as a writing guy. To me, when you write an idea, even if it's a sequel of something you already did, you always have a pressure. I wasn't thinking as a producer. I was thinking as an author. You always want to do the best with the idea that's before you. Yeah.
But can I ask you and Cho as well, because you work within the European, the French system. Obviously, you don't have as much money as you would in the US.
I think we are 100 million less than every film. Yeah.
More money, more problems, though.
Yeah.
Do either of you see any advantages, though, in the European system in terms of creative freedom, in terms of the ability to take bigger risks?
At the very beginning, when you're writing, it's hard not to limit yourself because you're never going to have the money to do whatever you want, But at the end of the day, you write whatever you want and you have the final cut and you do. But also, I think it's different, and Liane maybe will answer differently because also I made my studio because I wanted to control everything, the craft. I wanted to control the writing. I also wanted to control the way of doing it in terms of production, and to protect the teams. And it's different because when it's your company, you take risks differently when it's not the case. And also, well, every way of doing it is different, and I couldn't answer for generally for all the European authors or French authors. But it's true that in France, we as there's not as much money as you said, Maggie, or yeah, we're in a way more free because there's less pressure, less economic pressure, I think. Yeah,
it's true. We have this amazing system with a lot of public foundings, but also different private foundings. And for example, our movie Little Amélie was, I think, around 9 million euros budget. But still, of course, it takes much more time because you have to convince a lot of different people. I mean, our movie started, I think, seven years ago, but now 8 because it's been a year we have finished it. But yeah, it takes much more progressive. You have to convince, slowly all the different investors to go to development and then later to script writing and then production, of course. So it's quite progressive, but you still have, the same issues, especially in our movie, because the book we decided to adapt is not a children book. It's for adults. And with my list, we always wanted to do like a intergenerational movie, which that speaks to kids, but also adults in a different way with different layers. And of course, in our world, everyone has an opinion about what a kid can understand or handle, So it's always a battle, between, of course, the production part, financing part, and the artistic part. We have sometimes different vision about this, So it's always still, even though we are in more independent, let's say that, it's always, I would say, a struggle, especially when we are talking about target.
It is interesting to see the number of the films that we're talking about go to places that you don't often see sort of family-friendly animation go. I mean, Domee, I even think that's the case a little bit for Elio, because it uses sort of almost horror themes within its structure. Was there any sort of pushback from that? Did you get any notes saying, take out the scary monsters?
I do remember Pete Docter being a little bit concerned that it was maybe too intense at first, but then when Maddie and I pitched the idea in the story room, but then we just had to prove it out. Like, we assigned the scene to like a very talented story artist, Lee Tang. It wasn't even a full script. It was just kind of like, it was like an outline with beats of like Olga kind of like, kissing the clone on the forehead, and then he goes to bed, and then she opens her mouth, revealing a single hair. And like all of that was kind of just written very generally. And we gave it to Lee. He knocked it out of the park. It was like the first pass. He played it for us. I think Pete was in the room too. And then we were all like laughing and like feeling super tense and grossed out. But it was like gross and funny and scary, and you just can't deny when like a scene works in the room, because you play it and then you just feel the energy in the room, and people are like excited, or there's like a stir, and that the idea proved itself out.
That totally worked. That scene was my favorite in the whole movie. The minute I saw it, I was like, that is so Domee.
Thank you.
Jared, I mean, I don't need you to speak for the studio system, but are there certain topics or even approaches that are still sort of taboo when it comes to animation?
I mean, honestly, no. I know that's something that people talk about a lot. I'd say that since I've been here, the only thing I've ever felt are people saying push farther. I think it's so important. We talked a lot about brave storytelling. I think that's actually what audiences want. I think there's always this fear of, do we need to manage this for audiences? But in my experience, people like to be pushed, or they like when they see a filmmaker taking chances. I think it's critical. So I'd say no. I'd say a big challenge that a lot of us have is, how do you reach a very broad audience? And I don't mean that in a way that says like you have to sort of find something in the middle for everybody. But I think as we're going through our stories, you want to have a part of it that really appeals to adults, part of it that really appeals to kids, but all around the world. And I'd say that's, for me, a really fun puzzle, because it doesn't mean that one joke has to work for everyone. It has to mean that there's candy and toys for everyone to discover as they're moving through the story.
It's true, but you're talking about taboo. In our movie, we met a lot of taboo, especially about death, because our movie is actually quite about death. Of course, it takes place in Japan post-World War, so 30 years later. So of course, there's still some scars in there, And so it was a big topic, I must say. It was very hard to convince, but I would say it really depends on how you show it, because we're still in the point of view of a 2.5-year-old little girl, right? But my son is 8, and he's very curious about death. It's just depends of the way how you explain it. You have this scene in our movie where Amélie is asking, why do we die? And it's actually the same question that my son asked me 2 years ago. And you just instead of trying to escape from this question, Nishio-san actually tried in her own way to explain to Amélie. It's just the way we filmed it. It was not like a graphic with a lot of violence or whatever, or even on the opposite. We didn't try to mannerizing the situation, because it's still a very tough history, what happened in Japan, and it's not even our history as well. So we just have to try the right balance, but not escape from it. So that was one of our big challenge, of course, So to convince to explain that no, kids can understand and handle more than what we think.
Yep. I mean, at the core, we're all trying to make our audiences feel something, And I think it's so important as you're going through, even if it's a difficult subject. I think at the end of the day, we're trying to elicit an emotional response, and so that's where sometimes taking on more difficult things is a way to do that.
I just don't know about everybody else, but from my experience, I feel like every risk I took, where I felt, is this too much? Am I doing? Are we going too far? It was always the right choice. So I really feel like when you have that fear, it's the right thing. Like you just lean into that fear and just go for it.
The emotion, that the emotions are muscles, and this is the role of stories, is to muscle these emotions and so when we're in face of a situation, we don't fall, and to me this is the only role of fiction. So if we're doing this job, it's to do this work for people too.
And it's true about emotion. I believe that when you have watched a movie, of course it's great when the movie is great and you're happy about watching it, but it's even better when it stays inside of you, because the emotion really put a little mark on you, and somehow almost sometimes when it's even better, actually determine what you will be as an adult, like could influence that, because the movie was emotionally so strong, So that's really, like the gold that we try to aim every time we try to do a movie. Like it stays forever inside of us.
Yeah. I feel like I don't think any theme is taboo for us in animation. I think it's more just about execution and like how do we utilize the power of animation to explore this theme in the best possible way, like something that live action or documentary could not do. Like how do we explore grief or death or like belonging or loneliness? Like how do we do that with animation in the most interesting and evocative and emotional way?
And does that freedom now extend to types of animation? I mean, 3D animation is still very dominant in the U.S. System. Though, Alexander, I mean, you played around a little bit. You have a couple of experiments within your 3D. The two European films that we have here are both 2D animation. Is there more openness to different forms of animation so that everything doesn't have to be 3D CGI in order to be sort of seen as a broad, a popular movie?
I mean, I sure hope so. And I think you're seeing that with the rise in popularity of anime. I mean, I think it's like the fastest growing medium, at least on streaming, because it's just exploding. And I think it gives me so much faith and hope in younger audiences that they see animation not as a genre and not as kids, content, but it's for everybody. And you can tell so many different types of stories. And I think, the Japanese filmmakers know that. Even the French filmmakers know that. I think the American and the Western filmmakers I think the people in the industry know that, but audiences in the West are a little bit slow to catch up to that. Because it's just been dominated for so long by family content, and I love family content, and my film is a family film, but I also love stories that really tell more mature themes and deal with more mature themes, and even not just in thematics but in the sequences that they're presenting. Ultra violent animated movies are cool. Anime does that so well, and I'm so like Blue Eye Samurai is so cool. I'm so glad it exists, and I think that if this trend continues, hopefully that trickles up to the bigger studios.
But luckily, we are also the new parents. They have been grown up with animation, Japanese animation, American, of course, So we have hope that the parents of today will also teach their kids, to watch also more animation and teach them with more mature animation as well as they grow up.
Jared, obviously you couldn't do everything on Zootopia 2. How restricted were you in terms of what you could do visually, stylistically? Because people are going to expect the characters to look like the characters in the first film. They're going to expect a similar approach and style. Was that, did you feel that sort of at all a restriction for what you're able to do within the film?
Well, I'd say yes and no. I think that as you're heading into a continuation story, people want to see the characters as they know them. So if you mess with it too much, there's a disconnect where people are feeling like, oh, here's these friends of mine that I know. But I will say it was important for us to change our visual style for this movie. The first Zootopia, Judy Hopps went on this very Capra-esque adventure, and that was really a part of the visual design and language of that story. This one continues to push into noir a bit more. It's a bit more world story. I mean, this is a movie about our differences and how like all of us, whether we're the best of friends or whether we're not, there's these core differences, and are we, as a group, are we compatible or not? We really wanted to infuse that into the visual language of this story, and so I think people watching it will feel a pretty big shift in terms of the visual language of this. So I think that's really important. Again, as we've kind of all been talking, I think audiences, as much as they want to feel something familiar, they also want to be challenged, and that was really important part of the story.
I have a question for you, Jared. Did you keep the models, the 3D models, or did they evolve for the second movie? How did you do?
It's a good question. Yes and no. So we actually changed our software and our pipeline for this film, but we couldn't do it. We couldn't do it with everybody. So some of the characters are actually in the original pipeline. Other characters are in our new pipeline, which is Presto. And then sometimes we have those characters in the same sequences, but they actually couldn't touch each other because it didn't. That wasn't possible. Or sometimes we build a model in both in case we had a dominant amount of characters in one or the other. So I'd say yes, and it was a very big learning curve for that, because we found with all these characters that had fur, the fur actually I'd say the way that the properties of the fur changed quite a lot. And so we go, here's our character, and all of a sudden they'd be like poofy out here. We'd spend weeks and weeks just trying to get back to the look of the original film. So I'd say while I think that the new software really helped us finish the movie, the learning curve was pretty aggressive.
That's fascinating.
I hate to bring this up, but of course I can't do a panel like this without mentioning artificial intelligence. We've seen new Sora 2 and new models come out, spreading across the world. We have now, I think OpenAI they're backing an animated feature film that could be, they claim, we'll spend $30 million and they'll get a $200 million style animation, completely upending the way this process usually works. I guess a general question for all of you, what impact do you see happening now? And what are you afraid of? What are you maybe hopeful for the use of AI in animation?
I can answer first.
I was saying, who's jumping in?
I don't know if it's the right answer, but when I was 20, my first animation teacher gave me my first advice. He told me, Liane-Cho, in animation, don't try to impress, try to move people instead. And that's the rule I've been trying to follow, since then, and hopefully until the rest of the future, And of course, what I can see with AI today is very impressive, I don't know if it's filled with soul. I can still see it's still a bit empty, and I still have the confidence that emotion, the craft of emotion, like Hugo said, how to muscle emotion, will still be a human, I would say. And I mean, I'm saying that, but I don't know, maybe next year they will prove me wrong, I have no idea, but I have the feeling that emotion is still a human property. And I hope, and I believe really for, again, many years.
I think that, I agree. I feel like human creativity is at the very core of every single thing that we do. One of the real luxuries that I have here is there's 700 people that work on any movie that we do here. And everyone contributes. Everyone's idea makes it in. The best idea always comes through, and it's because of all the different perspectives and points of view, ways of executing things that make these stories and these movies special. So that has to always be at the core, or I don't think it would be at least for me, it wouldn't be a Disney animated movie without that, all those different perspectives and people bringing those.
For me as an artist, I know that whenever I'm trying to land an expression in a storyboard, I have to make that face in order to put it on paper. And our animators do the same thing. There's a reason why they act out their scene. They record like a reference video, and so that they can get into the character, feel it, and then be able to put that into the characters themselves. So there is this need of just being able to feel in order to represent it on screen. And I don't think that AI, I don't know, I don't think it'll ever be able to do that. And we can tell, like there's like a lack of soul in it, and I don't know that spark, that human spark is ever going to come through.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I'm not that worried because, and maybe I'm just being naive, but every time there's been some sort of technological innovation in the arts, there's always been a lot of fear around it. So like, with CG, people are like, oh my God, 2D is going to die. And all these people, that art form is not going to be around. I mean, obviously there was a shift, but it's still around. I mean, two of the films that are represented here are 2D animated films. And people still found a way to, when I was coming out of college, there was this real big shift between 2D and CG. And a lot of people ended up adopting, the technology. And I wanted to be an animator, but I didn't want to use the computer because it was so clunky to me and it was so unintuitive. So I went into story because I could still draw that way. And I always felt like CG just didn't have the right human quality or human look to it. But now, I mean, they've been able, my film's CG, and I hope there's a lot of humanness in it. And all the films that we watch now, they're clearly able to evoke a lot of human emotion, but that's because there's human beings behind the technology and they're using it just as their sort of pencil. So, my hope is that AI will develop in conjunction with artists and with human beings, and that is what is going to make it great art. Like, you can't do it without the person.
Absolutely, because AI is just giving us what we want, what we ask. But sometimes it's nice to receive what we didn't ask, from some other human, to confront with our idea, to elevate it actually, right? And this little chaos, in story, when everyone is sticking together to build something, that's, I'm not sure that AI can create that, it will still be in our comfort zone.
And also machines are not living. They don't feel the breath of the air, they don't feel the heat of the fire. And our job is to tell all the what is being alive, And are we talking to robots, or are we talking to people that live the actual world, And I think this is why I think we're gonna be relevant in a future world.
Yeah, I think AI can't drive into work and have someone next to you in the car yell at you, and then that gives you an idea that you then put into the movie. I don't think it's like those 1,000 human interactions that contribute to our stories, and it'll never have that.
In today's world, we have a lack of empathy more and more. And not sure AI machines, trust to machine will ameliorate that. It's gonna be, I don't know, maybe worse. I don't know. So it's also good. I would say it's also important to not forget empathy. In our movie, we try to create empathy as well for our characters, for our for everything. So I think that's hopefully, but AI cannot still create empathy for human beings, for nature, for everything.
Yeah, it's inevitable. AI is here, but I feel like it can be a very powerful tool, but we have to use it responsibly. And at the end of the day, I think a human needs to be behind every choice in a creative work of art or anything.
But do you believe if I was doing prompts, I would hate my job. But when I'm drawing, I don't know. It's like being like in some, making jazz, or I don't know. It's like having feelings. It's like like I'm not making it. It's like you're passing through so much emotion, so much even doing it. And if I'm just like typing what I want to see, I don't have everything that makes my job cool. And also what makes me feel better in my life, because I have something, a tool to act in the world, and to put my I don't know.
But I've
I
met
love what
some.
Domee said about like accidents happening. Like you go down a path and then you just end up in a place where you didn't expect, or like you think something is wrong, but then you find that that's the right idea. And you can't really do that with prompts. Like you're trying to get to like a destination, and how do I get it? But you're not going to these other little crevices where it could be gold.
Well, maybe I could just end with a very human question then, since we're talking about the essence of humanity. I was inspired a bit by what Liane-Cho said, that that there are moments in film and cinema that stay within you, that stay corporally in your body. Can I ask all of you, just really briefly, what moment, or what is one of those moments for you from the past, maybe from childhood, if you're being first exposed to animation, or it could be also from one of your films. It's something that you think really has stayed within you in your corporal bodies.
In Spirited Away, when Chihiro receives a rice ball from Haku, and then she starts eating it and crying. And then like Joe Hisaishi's piano music comes in, like that makes me cry every single time I watch it. And it's so cute and sad and sweet, and you really feel her loneliness and her like, oh my god, like what am I doing here? Like it's so good. And the rice ball like looks so delicious, and her like tears are very thick and they're kind of like running down her face, and then the music's picking up. Yeah, it's a perfect scene, and I eat and cry all the time at home, so very relatable.
Yeah, when I was 16, actually, I discovered three movies. First, Princess Mononoke, which I discovered in the cinema first, and then I could have the VCD because it was released in France much later. I watched it 12 times in 1 week. And then the same year, I discovered Grave of the Fireflies from Isao Takahata. I think I spent right after I spent 1 hour in my shower crying, and then I watched it. I don't know why 5 more times the same week, And the exact same year, I discovered another one. I don't think you know this one. It's called Rurouni Kenshin Tsuokuhen. And I think this one I've probably watched it 50 times, But when you're a teenager at that time, 16. You're still, immature, because you haven't, have any experience of life, but still mature enough to try to dissociate yourself from your parents, because you're also trying to build your identity, So those 3 movies I remember really, changed the course of my life.
Grave of the Fireflies was mine. That can of hard candy that she had, I used to have that as a kid. And seeing that in that film just devastated me. I couldn't believe that movie was made. I mean, it's a war movie about 2 kids just trying to survive the horrors of war, and it's animated. I think it's one of the best, if not the best, war movie ever made. And then obviously Iron Giant, the Superman moment, when he goes up into the sky and takes the bomb. I was like, crying like a little baby when I saw that. And that stayed with me for ever since I've seen it.
I'd say for me, all of those as well. The other emotion that I remember feeling, I saw Jungle Book in theaters. It was the first movie I ever remember seeing in a theater. And it was also experiencing joy. I think that, I think in trying to figure out how to pull these deep emotions out, there is something to, especially now, bringing joy to the world that I think is so critical. And that's something that I think that animation is kind of uniquely suited for. And that's something that always stuck with me. I think watching that movie for the first time and just wanting to hang out, seeing a friendship start, and how much joy came out of that, to me, that really was something that I thought about a lot, and I think about as we're telling stories moving into the future.
I think for me, there's a time when all the Chaplin films came out on DVD, and my dad bought all of them, and we just watched. That's all we did all week, is like just watch Chaplin films. And the one that really impacted me was City Lights, which is one of my favorite films. And just that last shot where it's just these two close-ups of the blind girl who's no longer blind, and then and the tramp, and it's just being able to like feel all of the emotions of these two characters and in a movie that's silent. And there's so much problem solving with the characters, and how does the girl find out that know that or perceive the tramp as like as a rich gentleman even though he's a tramp. Like there's stories that Chaplin tells about like how he kind of told that story without any dialogue. And I don't know, there's all these like little story problem solving things that he talks about, and I just learned so much about like telling stories just through pantomime and expressions and action.
Yeah, great. No, as I say, I mean, it's, just echo Jared. I think if there's any time in the world history that we need joy, I think now is the time. And I'd like to thank all of you for taking part in this and for bringing joy to me, and I think to everyone who's watched your movies. Thank you so much, and thanks so much for taking part.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, everybody. It's good to see everybody.